The Depth to Delve Deep by Rote Writer. Chapter 41. The Cave. It's nearing the last week of April when Rote's Swiss friend returns to Scotland to do her 6-day haggis tour. Ah, haggis, an acquired taste containing a concoction of brown innards stuffed inside the stomach membrane of a sheep, succulently served in patty form, much like a hamburger, only spicier, mixed with a little bit of grit and grain. "I'll have another," replies Rote the time he's served some by an old codger who comes in once in a while, not so much to volunteer, but vent his veneer at the convent's weekly Sunday breakfast services. Later, Rote hooks up with his Scotland-enslaved Swiss friend at a coffee shop familiar to both. He tells her all about Rosslyn Chapel. She decides to travel to Rosslyn with him. As usual, she's impressed with Rote's uncanny ability to time his travel in such a way as to always avoid the dreaded fee for entering the sacred sites scene. Somehow, without any effort either, in the way he seemingly seizes the moment everywhere he goes, even with her. The two walk right inside the chapel as if attending their own wedding. Within minutes, they are mingling amongst many parishioners that Sunday morning, enjoying coffee and cakes, just like any part of the congregation who have participated in the preceding ceremonies. The chapel isn't open for tourists until after the congregation departs. Inside, Rote's Swiss friend takes a picture of him, beside the apprentice pillar, all lit up with a powerful light. He's holding a cup of coffee, bearing a smile, shining his lucky stars. After returning to Switzerland, she forwards the posed picture to him through the internet. When Rote opens his email and sees the picture, he's pleased, for he doesn't travel with a camera. For that matter, he doesn't travel much, save for bothersome baggage. When he sees the picture of himself standing beside the illuminated apprentice pillar, holding a cup of coffee, he pauses, he ponders, reflecting on a moment in his past. He remembers another girlfriend. She writes an analogous comic strip depicting a knight-errant sipping coffee in a shop selling Java. He becomes illuminated with the heavenly vision of the Holy Grail after one sip. A couple of weeks later, after reading the rendered ruin attuned to a comic, Rote enters the very coffee shop in script, and as seen in scene, he sits down with his cup of coffee, only to see someone suddenly and completely unexpectedly jump up while holding in one hand a cup of coffee and the other a camera, then proceed to take a picture of himself with his camera, where he is found filled with what else but illumination. Not so for Rote. When the camera flash finds the knight-errant standing beside the infamous pillar with a cup of coffee, he's not filled with illumination. He's blinded by a bulb flash blurred donut dance. The luminous lights float like fairies. Some time passes before he can see properly. When he does, Rote leads his Swiss friend out the door, then down towards the direction of William Wallace's famed cave. They tour through the ruined castle along the way before slipping down the path leading down under the arch. All the while, Rote realizes how rough the route will become once nearer to the cave. He hopes his Swiss friend will be up for the task. He encourages her before leaving in the morning to bring an extra pair of shoes. She does, though with no idea why. Nonetheless, she's up for the task when they come to the reason. Rote keeps his eye peeled to the right along the way. He knows how difficult it is to find the exact spot to cross the rushing river, and how difficult it is to spot the cave from the opposite side. With these thoughts, he figures now is the time to assure her with stories. His Swiss friend is still in disbelief about all the stories Rote relays upon her return. In this cave they brave to see is no different. Though in Rote's defense, the last time they are together before she returns to Switzerland, he lets her know with foresight that he'll be homeless upon her return. And so she finds out upon her return that indeed he does become destitute and remains still, though cared for by the good graces of the sisters who seek salvation through selflessness. When Rote tells his Swiss friend his take on the historical intrigue significant with Rosslyn Chapel, she shirks it off as a bunch of bull. But after she sees the chapel for herself, her disbelief becomes belief. She's blown away by the awe and wonder of it all. Nonetheless, not once, but twice she doubts him, only to be undoubtedly denied. Her disbelief continues with Rote's take on the claim that not only does the cave exist, but none other than William Wallace hides there from the English. Way back in the early strains of Scotland struggled with its southern neighbour. They searched for the Wallace, up and down and all around the glen without ever finding him. All the while he and his men are hidden in the cave. Yet now, as the two brave the way to the cave, literally standing directly across the river from the fabled hideaway, she still stays in disbelief. Rote patiently points to the main attraction, centering her sights. He proceeds to point and say, "Look there. No, there. No, to the left. Up a bit. That's right. No, no, no. Not that figment. Further up. Now, do you see? No?" Now he's shaking his head in disbelief, though he will continue to clear her cobs to center her view. Rote can understand why the Wallace remains undetected. The clandestine cave is only known to exist by people who pass it from the far side of the river. Rote finds how difficult it is to detect on his maiden gallivant through the glen. Soon he'll let his Swiss friend find how very difficult it is to ascend and descend from the bluff spur. The cave's entrance is so small and so high up a reddened rock face that even when a person looks straight at it, they'll only see a shaded section on the sheer red hue front of the facade, much like a dent shadowed by the sun solely upon being positioned and present when the sun on any given day is shining. And so it seemed. And so they can see, or he can see, he's still unsure if she's just agreeing to get going. It's there to be seen more than midway up, and both are now lured by the lore, the stuff of legends and the cavernous charm. Now halfway across the river, his Swiss friend is filled with doubts and getting extremely edgier with every step, until Rote, much coaxing and cajoling, convinces her to hold his hand and mimic his steps. She steps timidly. He seems surer than she does to step on ground buried beneath the rushing river. She may have lacked confidence in his stories, but not in the hand holding hers, sure and secure, safe in strength, crafted by character, captured by courage, armed in arms, caressed by charming calms. Yet she doubts him still, that the cave they're about to ascend to be the very one Sir William Wallace, High Protector of Scotland, escapes from the English. They arrive safely across the river. With great caution, they climb the very wet and very treacherous vertical trail upwards. While looking up during the ascent, they are surprised to see two rock climbers rappelling down from the very top of the red rock-faced bluff to the very cave entrance endeavor. They all arrive at the same time, and as always, Rote's claim to fame about the cave is verified without effort or encouragement. The two mountaineers, both born and raised Scotsmen, volunteer without prompt or prod by a pleased Rote with their own take on the lore of the cave and the chapel as well. Rote thinks there is no end to the angelic avail, as the two who appear like angels from above not only concur with every word Rote sells, they enhance them as well. One of the mountaineers, found to be the only true Scot of the two, participates in a long-running production performed inside Rosslyn Chapel. And so it's so cast, it gives him plenty of time and privy information about the supernatural side of the sacred structure. Now inside the cave, the two are left in wonder to wander around the cave, while the other two climb back up the bluff. Inside, they see the doorway seems to be hand-hewn around the edges into a hatchway, judging by the makeshift metal hinges still lodged on one side deliberately. Surely a door at one time of some kind must have been supported. The door must have been hewn from the same stone face with red hue, making it not easy to detect. Rote later learns the Knights Templars at the time, maybe even the master of Rosslyn Glen and Rosslyn Chapel, be it William or Henry St. Clair, or the other may have, or one or the other may have helped harbor William Wallace from the English. The Knights Templars are no strangers to crusades. It's their template, though this one comes to them. While in the cave, he notices the ceiling is covered in cobs. Watchful eyes seem everywhere. The walls are equally webbed. The wily spinner waits with want in its weave. It patiently plots each spin akin to the beguilement of an arachnid, a veil in a clean. And like Robert the Bruce in fame, Rote too has spent some time admiring the spin and sway in the way a web is woven. Mesmerized by the sun-wise way the web spirals from the center several circles before the builder bridges the guideline grid counterclockwise. Then from the outer reaches to where it begins, the spider stomachs its silken core to have an open door as it lies in more. Lo, the lower, now in the core of the cave, the two can see inside the interior itself. It seems hewn by hand somewhat, with a chip here and a chisel there. You see three alcoves culminating the carve of the nave of the cave, curving into a stem at the entrance, like a shamrock or three-leaf clover, or a club playing card with a stem. On the walls are pictographs, mysteriously marked. One in particular is a motif that seems to be found throughout the Celtic world. A spiraling circle. Some spin like the number 6 or the letter G, like galaxies, some like spider spins, others like twisters, tree rings, or thumbprints, some concentric with a line through, others with no apparent beginning or end. So seen, Rote stands to be recognized for the picture. His Swiss friend takes another one of him in the dim within. Afterwards, they hike up instead of down the bluff. His Swiss friend doesn't trust herself, let alone the footing. She has a reasonable fear of falling should they dare a descent, not to mention the already risked river. Decided, they head upwards along a safer ascent to the top of the cliff, where again there are signs of some stone masonry. The two stand on top of what seems to be a medieval patio, with a fantastic view of the other side of the river and glen. Onwards they go along a ridge leading to a road and a way back to Rote. Rote can tell his Swiss friend is a bit miffed at him. The trail back fares far more with ease than the trail there, but then where would the fun of the adventure be, he exclaims. With a smile filled with thrill, the two make their way to Roslin proper, bypassing the chapel one last time. His Swiss friend buys him a late lunch after they return to Edinburgh. There they say their goodbyes. She's on her way to the Highlands. When Rote hears about her adventure and feels her excitement, he feels himself pushed forward with an impetus to see Ireland. It's no longer a fantasy, but a fact, for he can now afford to travel there and back. He can travel from Edinburgh with a return coach fare, including the ferry, to Belfast for only 15 quid. Heck, he has 200 quid now that his bank has cleared his cheque from the cleaners. However, this time around his departure from the convent isn't as gracious and accommodating for him to return. He's been jittery for a while. Ever since coming back from Iona, he's been on edge to get going again. When Rote's check comes in, he has the means to move on, with only the moment to make or break the divide to decide the day he'll depart. The deciding day's driving force for his departure from the convent comes the day after wishing his Swiss friend a good trip in the Highlands. He walks away from her wondering if he will still be living at the convent upon her